once upon a time, in a cozy little kitchen warmed by the golden glow of the afternoon sun, there sat a glass cookie jar on the counter, its smooth surface glimmering like a treasure chest. Inside, nestled among his crumbly companions, was Chip, a brave little chocolate chip cookie with a heart full of dreams. While the other cookies drowsed in the sweet, sugary air, Chip stayed wide awake, his crumbs tingling with curiosity as he peered through the jar's curved sides. Outside his crunchy confines, the world stretched wide and wondrous, a kingdom of towering spice jars, silvery mixing bowls, and the gentle hum of the refrigerator, like a distant lullaby. But what captivated Chip most was the window above the sink, where streaks of fading sunlight painted the sky in soft pinks and purples, and beyond it, the faintest twinkle of the first evening star. Chip had heard whispers from the gingerbread that once, long ago, a daring raisin had slipped out of the jar and seen the great beyond, though none knew what had become of him. The idea sent a shiver of excitement through Chip's crispy edges. What lay past the kitchen counter? Were there more cookies out there? Or perhaps even grand feasts where crumbs like him were celebrated as heroes? The cookie jar's lid, usually so sturdy, seemed to sigh in the evening quiet, as if it too dreamed of adventure. And so, as the kitchen grew still and the moon began its slow climb into the sky, Chip made up his mind. Tonight, he would find a way out of the jar, and nothing, not the towering flour bags, not the distant ticking of the oven clock, would stop him from discovering the world that waited just beyond his glass walls. The kitchen had fallen into deep silence, save for the occasional hum of the fridge and the soft creak of the house settling into night. As Chip pressed his crumbly face against the cool glass of the jar, watching how the moonlight spilled across the counter like a river of silver, the other cookies slumbered in peaceful heaps, their sweet, doughy breaths filling the jar with drowsy warmth. But Chip couldn't bring himself to close his chocolate chip eyes, not when the world outside glimmered with quiet magic. Carefully, he wiggled to the top of the cookie pile, his crispy edges catching on his sleeping friends, until he could just barely reach the rim of the jar. The lid, normally so snug, had tilted ever so slightly, as if the kitchen itself had decided to help him, allowing a whisper of cool night air to brush against him, carrying the faintest scent of cinnamon from the spice rack, and something mysterious, something like distant rain, or maybe the hint of a faraway garden. His heart, which, for a cookie, felt very large and very quick, fluttered as he stretched higher. And suddenly, with a tiny hop, he tumbled over the edge, landing with a soft plink on the countertop. The world outside the jar was vast and hushed, bathed in shadows that danced in the moon's gentle glow. And for a moment, Chip simply lay there, marveling at the smooth, cool surface beneath him, so unlike the crumbly closeness of home. Then a soft tap, tap, tap caught his attention, not from the jar, but from somewhere deeper in the kitchen. A rhythmic sound, like tiny footsteps, or perhaps the pattering of something light against wood. Chip sat up, craning his neck, and there, near the edge of the counter where the shadows pooled, he spotted an unexpected sight. A trail of tiny, sparkling crumbs leading toward the edge, glowing faintly in the dim light, as if left behind by someone or something that had come this way before. The crumbs shimmered like stardust, and as Chip followed them with his eyes, he noticed they disappeared just beyond a towering flour sack, where the darkness seemed to stir ever so slightly, as if inviting him to come closer, to discover what lay just out of sight. The thought of stepping into the unknown sent a shiver of quiet excitement through him. But the night was so still, so safe, and the crumbs seemed to whisper without words, "Follow and see." And so, with one last glance back at the cookie jar where his friends slept on, Chip took his first steps into the moonlight, his tiny shadow stretching long behind him as he followed the trail toward whatever gentle mystery awaited. The sparkling crumb trail led Chip past the flour sack, where the moonlight pooled in soft silver puddles. And there, nestled between two wooden spoons leaning against each other like old friends, he found the most curious sight: a tiny paper boat, no bigger than his thumb, floating in a shallow tide of spilled milk that shimmered with reflected starlight. The boat rocked gently, its folded edges glowing faintly as if lined with captured fireflies, and scattered around it were more of those glimmering crumbs, clustered in little piles like miniature beacons. Chip crouched at the milk's edge, watching his crumbly reflection ripple beside the boat. And then he heard it, a sound like laughter made from wind chimes, so light he might have imagined it, drifting from somewhere near the stove. The boat tipped slightly toward the sound, as if pointing the way, and Chip, with newfound courage tingling through his chocolate chips, carefully stepped onto a leaf of dried parsley that lay like a raft beside him, letting the milky tide carry him forward. The kitchen unfolded around him in hushed wonder. Towers of teacups cast delicate shadows that swayed like underwater reeds, and the oven's warm breath smelled faintly of yesterday's blueberry muffins, sweet and comforting. As his parsley leaf drifted around a bend where the counter met the backsplash tiles, Chip gasped there, dancing atop a pat of butter left softening on a china plate, were 3 sprinkles, their tiny bodies alight with vibrant colors, twirling in a slow, waltzing circle. They paused mid-spin when they noticed him, their sugar-frosted faces breaking into shy smiles, and one, a daring little star-shaped sprinkle with edges that shimmered like pink quartz, stretched out an arm as fine as a thread of cotton candy, gesturing to a path Chip hadn't seen before. A series of salt crystals scattered like stepping stones across the counter, leading to the open windowsill where the night breeze carried in the scent of jasmine and possibility. beyond the sill, the world spilled into velvet darkness, punctuated by porch lights that blinked like friendly eyes. And Chip felt his crumbly heart swell. Every whispered story, every dream of adventure had led him here, to this moment where the kitchen's boundaries melted away, and the night itself seemed to lean in, wrapping him in its soft, stardusted embrace, ready to carry him gently toward whatever wonder came next. As Chip stepped onto the windowsill, the night air wrapped around him like a silken blanket, carrying whispers of distant laughter and the rustling leaves of the garden below. The sprinkle friends twirled around him in a final glittering dance before scattering into the breeze like tiny fireworks, their colors fading into the dark as they called out in voices like tinkling bells. Remember us. Remember this. And then, just as suddenly as the adventure had begun, Chip found himself not alone, but beside a plump, kindly raisin perched on the edge of the sill, his wrinkled face glowing with moonlight and a knowing smile. "You made it," the raisin murmured, patting the space beside him. And Chip realized with a thrill that this was the very raisin the gingerbread had spoken of, the one who'd slipped away long ago. Together, they gazed at the sprawling world beyond the kitchen, the dewy grass like a sea of emerald, the fireflies flickering like floating stars, and the vast, endless sky that seemed to hum a lullaby just for them. The raisin explained in a voice as soft as cinnamon dust that the kitchen was only the beginning, that every crumb and sprinkle had a story waiting beyond the jar, and that the true magic wasn't in staying or leaving, but in the courage to wonder, to reach, to taste the sweetness of the unknown. Chip's edges tingled with understanding, and as the first blush of dawn painted the horizon in gentle gold, he felt not small, but part of something boundless, a world where cookies could be explorers, where moonlight could be a path, and where every ending was just the quiet beginning of another story. The raisin nudged him toward a waiting maple leaf, its stem curled like an invitation. And as Chip climbed aboard, the morning wind lifted him gently, carrying him back toward the cookie jar where his friends still slept, none the wiser, while he settled among them, his heart full of starlight and secrets, knowing now that adventure wasn't just beyond the glass, it was inside him all along, waiting to be shared in whispered tales and crumbly dreams. Back inside the cookie jar, nestled safely between his drowsy friends, Chip let out a contented little sigh as the first golden rays of morning sunlight danced across the kitchen counter. The gentle hum of the refrigerator and the distant chirping of early birds wrapped around him like a warm hug. And as he gazed through the glass at the now familiar world beyond, his chocolate chips softened with happiness, knowing that the kitchen he called home was even more magical than he'd dreamed. The adventures of the night still glowed softly in his memory, the sprinkles waltz, the raisin's wisdom, the way the stars had twinkled just for him. And as his eyelids grew heavy, he realized the sweetest part of all was coming back to share these stories someday with the other cookies when they woke. Outside, the last sleepy star winked through the window as if to whisper good night, and the cookie jar itself seemed to snuggle around them all, its glass walls holding the peaceful, quiet like a lullaby. Chip snuggled deeper into the crumbly warmth, watching as the kitchen slowly brightened with dawn, its ordinary wonders now glowing with secret magic, until at last his eyes fluttered closed, his edges relaxing into the soft, sugar-scented dark, exactly where he belonged, dreaming of milk rivers and starlit sails, while the world outside hummed him gently to sleep.